I lost my car on a Tuesday morning and gained clarity by dinner. Hello, my name is Evelyn Harper, and I'm 72 years old. I'm saying that up front because age is the excuse people use when they decide you're no longer the authority on your own life. They say it softly, with concern in their eyes, as if they're doing you a kindness while they reach into your purse and take what they want. This story is about my son, and about what happens when a woman stops apologizing for still being capable. It started, as humiliations often do, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I was standing in my kitchen, the morning sun slanting through the blinds, coffee cooling on the counter. I'd just come back from the grocery store, keys still in my hand, when Daniel, my youngest, my responsible one, cleared his throat behind me. "Mom," he said gently, too gently, "we should talk." That sentence has never meant anything good in my experience. I turned around and saw him holding his phone in both hands like a shield. He didn't sit. He didn't take off his jacket. He was already braced for impact. "About what?" I asked, keeping my voice even. He glanced at the keys in my hand. "I've been worried," he said. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. "You live 40 minutes away," I said. "What exactly have you been worrying about?" He shifted his weight. "You missed a turn last week." I blinked. I took the scenic route. "You ended up at the wrong pharmacy." "They moved," I said, "and I figured it out." He nodded the way people do when they've already decided you're wrong. "That's kind of my point," he said. "These little things add up." I set my keys on the counter slowly, carefully, like they might explode. "What are you saying, Daniel?" He exhaled, reached for the keys. "I think it's time you let me hold on to these," he said. "Just for now. For safety. For safety." Those words are a leash when they're spoken to women like me. I stared at him, at the man I raised, at the same hands I once held crossing busy streets. "You think I'm unsafe?" I asked. "I think you're getting older," he said quickly, "and I love you." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "You didn't ask," I said. He picked up the keys anyway. "I'm not taking anything," he said. "I'm helping." I watched him slip them into his pocket. That was the moment I understood this wasn't concern. It was control. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I did what women my age have learned to do very well. I went quiet. "You can always call me," he added, relief flooding his face now that the hard part was over. "I'll drive you anywhere." I smiled at him. "Of course," I said. He hugged me, quick and awkward, then left like he'd just completed an unpleasant chore. I stood in my kitchen long after the door closed. Then I made myself a fresh cup of coffee. Because here's the thing no one warns you about. When someone decides you're incompetent, they don't do it all at once. They take a small thing first, something symbolic, something that lets them test how much resistance they'll get. I let him have the keys, and I started paying attention. The calls increased after that, not warm check-ins, surveillance. "Did you take your pills? Where are you today?" "Why didn't you answer right away?" When I suggested walking to the library, he frowned. "That's far," he said. "It's 3 blocks. When I mentioned visiting my sister for the weekend, he hesitated. "I'd feel better if you waited," he said. "You get tired. I'd raised 2 children, survived a husband who drank, buried my parents, and kept a household running on grit and budgeting. But now I was tired. The final straw came when he showed up unannounced with paperwork. I was folding laundry when he spread the documents across my dining table. "Just some updates," he said lightly. "In case of emergencies, power of attorney, medical proxy." "Daniel," I said slowly, "why are you bringing me this?" He didn't meet my eyes. "Things happen," he said, "and it's better to be prepared." Prepared for what? I picked up the papers and read them carefully. Years of experience balancing checkbooks and contracts had taught me to read the fine print, to notice what wasn't said. This wasn't temporary. This was a takeover. "I'm not signing these," I said. His head snapped up. "Mom." "No," I said, firm now. "You don't get to decide when I stop being myself." He looked stunned, offended. "I'm trying to protect you," he insisted. "From what?" I asked. "My autonomy?" He sighed, frustrated now. "You're being stubborn." There it was, the word they use when women refuse to comply. He gathered the papers, jaw tight. "We'll talk again," he said. After he left, I sat at the table, hands folded, heart pounding, not with fear, with resolve. Because while Daniel had been busy monitoring my movements, he'd forgotten something important. I am the one who taught him about money. Years ago, when he and his wife bought their first home, they couldn't quite qualify for the mortgage they wanted. Interest rates were ugly, credit histories thin. I stepped in. I co-signed, quietly, carefully, with the agreement written, notarized, that if anything happened, the responsibility would shift. It was meant as a safety net. Funny how that word keeps coming back. That night, I pulled the folder from my filing cabinet, the blue one, the one labeled just in case. I reread every page, and for the first time since my keys disappeared, I smiled. Because if Daniel thought I was powerless now, he had no idea what I was capable of when I stopped asking permission. I didn't confront Daniel right away. That was the first mistake people like him make when they underestimate women my age. They assume silence means confusion, or fear, or compliance. What it usually means is calculation. The morning after he brought the paperwork, I woke up before sunrise, the way I always have. Habit doesn't fade just because someone decides you're fragile. I made tea instead of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and laid out the documents from the blue folder like a deck of cards. The cosign agreement, the addendum, the contingency clause Daniel had skimmed right past 8 years ago because he was in a hurry and trusted his mother to handle the boring stuff. I handled it all right. The house wasn't just co-signed. It was collateralized under a private family loan structure. Perfectly legal, perfectly boring, perfectly powerful. If Daniel defaulted, financially or contractually, I could step in, not as a villain, as a creditor. At the time, I'd insisted on it because life has taught me that love without leverage eventually turns into obligation. I didn't know then how prophetic that would be. Later that morning, my phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring twice longer than usual before answering. "Mom," he said, already tense. "I've been thinking about yesterday." "So have I," said. "We got off on the wrong foot," he continued. "I don't want this to feel like I'm taking things away from you." I glanced at the empty hook by the door where my keys used to hang. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly how it feels." A pause, then a sigh, the one he uses when he thinks he's being patient. "Let's not make this bigger than it is," he said. "I'll hold on to the keys for a while. We'll revisit later." Later, another leash word. "And the paperwork?" I asked. "I'll bring it back another time," he said quickly. No pressure. There was pressure. He just didn't feel it yet. "Daniel," I said calmly, "when you took my keys without asking, that crossed a line." "I didn't take." "You did," I said, "and you don't get to rewrite that." Silence. "I'm doing this because I love you," he said, softer now. "I know," I replied, "but love doesn't require control." He didn't respond. We hung up politely, coolly, like two people pretending the ground beneath them hadn't shifted. That afternoon, I called my lawyer. Not Daniel's lawyer, mine. A woman 10 years younger than me with sharp eyes and a voice that didn't soften just because someone else expected it to. "I want to review a co-signed mortgage," I told her, "and I want to understand my options." She didn't ask why. She asked for documents. By the end of the week, I had clarity. And options. Meanwhile, Daniel escalated. He stopped suggesting and started deciding. Groceries appeared on my porch I hadn't ordered. Appointments were scheduled on my behalf. A handyman showed up to check for hazards. I sent him home. Daniel called furious. "You embarrassed me," he said. "You sent a stranger into my house." I replied, "We're even." That night, I walked to the corner store. Slowly, deliberately. I wanted to feel my legs moving under my own command. The air was cool, the pavement familiar. When I came back, a note was taped to my door. "Call me when you get home." I crumpled it and threw it away. The next weekend, Daniel came over with his wife, Melissa. She stayed quiet, perched on the edge of the couch, hands folded in her lap like a guest afraid of overstaying her welcome. Daniel did the talking. "We need to talk about expectations," he said. I sat across from him, spine straight. "Whose?" I asked. "Yours," he said. "And ours." Melissa shifted. "We're just trying to plan ahead," Daniel continued. "There may come a time when living alone isn't realistic. There may come a time when you stop assuming that," I said. He frowned. "This isn't about assumptions. It's about responsibility." I leaned forward. "You want responsibility?" I said. "Then return my keys." He hesitated. "That's not happening right now." I nodded. "Then this conversation is over." Melissa finally spoke. "Evelyn, we're worried." "Worry doesn't entitle you to ownership," I said gently. Daniel stood abruptly. "You're being difficult." "No," I said. "I'm being clear." They left shortly after. Daniel didn't hug me this time. 2 days later, my lawyer called. "Evelyn," she said, "we need to talk timing." I closed my eyes. "Yes," I said, "we do." That was the day I stopped being managed, and the day Daniel unknowingly started missing payments. Not because he couldn't afford them, because he'd been so busy managing me that he forgot the one thing I'd always quietly taken care of. The mortgage auto draft I'd set up years ago, the one still linked to my account. I let it lapse. Once. Just once. Not enough to ruin him. Just enough to wake him up. The bank called him on a Thursday. I know because he called me 10 minutes later, his voice tight and pitched higher than usual, like a man trying very hard not to panic. "Mom," he said, skipping any kind of greeting, "did something happen with the mortgage?" I was sitting by the window with a book I wasn't reading, sunlight warming my legs. I'd been expecting this call all week. Anticipation, it turns out, feels a lot like calm when you've already made peace with your decision. "What do you mean?" I asked. "The payment didn't go through," he said. "They said it bounced." I let a pause stretch just long enough to feel him squirm on the other end. "That's strange," I said. "It's been set up the same way for years." "Well, it's not set up anymore," he snapped. "I had to move money around to cover it." I closed the book and set it aside. "I'm sure you handled it," I said. Another pause. Shorter, sharper. "Mom," he said, slower now, "are you doing this on purpose?" There it was, the question underneath all the others. "I'm doing what I need to do," I replied. "You can't just." He stopped himself, took a breath. "This affects us." Melissa was really upset. I pictured her, anxious and silent, smoothing imaginary wrinkles out of her skirt. "Funny," I said. "No one seemed too concerned when you affected me." "That's not the same thing," he said. "Isn't it?" I asked quietly. Silence again. He'd always hated silence. He filled it with control, with plans, with decisions made on behalf of others. Now it stretched between us, unfamiliar and uncomfortable. "You're punishing us," he said finally. I smiled to myself. "No," I said. "I'm recalibrating." He scoffed. "You're proving my point. This is exactly why we were worried." "Because I'm capable of consequences?" I asked. "Or because I'm no longer predictable?" He didn't answer. "Daniel," I continued, "you took my keys because you decided I couldn't be trusted with my own life." "That's not." "And now," I said, You're upset because I've reminded you that I'm still part of yours." His voice dropped. "Are you threatening us?" I stood up and walked to the door, staring at the empty hook where my keys still hadn't returned. "I'm enforcing an agreement," I said. "One you signed, one you benefited from." "You wouldn't," he said, but there was doubt now. Real doubt. "I already am," I replied. That weekend he showed up again, alone this time. He looked different, less certain, like someone who discovered the ground wasn't as solid as he believed. He didn't sit down right away. "I brought your keys," he said, holding them out. I looked at them, familiar, heavy, mine. I didn't take them. "We need to talk first," I said. He nodded and sat, shoulders slumped. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "I thought I was helping." "I know," I said. "That's what makes it dangerous." He frowned. "Dangerous?" "When people confuse love with authority," I said, "they stop listening." He rubbed his hands together. "The bank said if there's another issue." "I'm aware," I said. "You could ruin us," he said, his voice breaking just a little. I leaned forward. "And you could have ruined me," I said, slowly, quietly, with paperwork and concern. He looked up at me then, really looked. "I didn't see it that way," he said. "That's the privilege of being the one in control," I replied. I finally took the keys from his hand. The metal was cool against my palm. "This isn't revenge," I said. "It's a boundary." He nodded, eyes glossy. "What do you want?" I thought about that. "I want respect," I said. "I want autonomy, and I want our relationship to be based on honesty, not supervision." "And the mortgage?" he asked carefully. I stood up, keys jingling softly. "That depends," I said. On the way out, he turned back. "Are you going to call the loan?" he asked. I met his gaze. "That depends on what happens next," I said. After he left, I went for a drive. No destination, just movement, just proof. The road opened up in front of me, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. Power, I've learned, doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it's the quiet certainty that you no longer have to ask permission. The thing about leverage is that once you have it, you have to decide who you're going to be while holding it. That question followed me for days after Daniel returned my keys. I drove everywhere, not because I needed to, but because I could. I went to the hardware store just to wander the aisles. I drove past the house where Daniel grew up and didn't stop. I sat in my car by the river and watched the water move without asking anyone if it was a good idea. Freedom, I discovered, is loud at first. Then it settles into something quieter, heavier. Daniel called again the following week. His tone had changed. No assumptions, no instructions, just nerves. "We got a letter," he said. I knew which one. "The bank wants a meeting," he continued. "They're reviewing the loan structure." "Yes," I said, "that happens." "They know about the contingency clause," he said. "About you." I said nothing. "They want to know if you intend to exercise it." There it was, the heart of it. "I intend to protect myself," I said. "That doesn't answer the question," he replied. "It does," I said, "just not in a way that comforts you." He exhaled slowly. "Can we talk in person?" I agreed. We met at his house, the one I'd helped him buy, the one with the carefully trimmed lawn and the porch Melissa decorated for every season. She wasn't home. Daniel gestured for me to sit at the kitchen table. I noticed he'd chosen the chair across from him, not at the head. Small detail, big change. "I was wrong," he said before I could speak, "about the keys, about the paperwork, about thinking I knew what was best." I waited. "I let fear turn into control," he continued, "and I justified it by calling it love." I nodded. "That's honest." He swallowed. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," I said, "but you already lost something." "What?" he asked. The version of me who would quietly absorb whatever you decided, I replied. His shoulders sagged. What do I need to do? That question mattered more than any apology. You need to understand this, I said. I am not a problem to be managed. I am a person who raised you, helped you, and deserves agency. I do, he said quickly. I see that now. Seeing isn't enough, I said. Behavior is what counts. He nodded. Tell me. I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. His eyes widened. I'm not calling the mortgage, I said. Not now. Relief flooded his face. But, I added, I am restructuring it. He stiffened. How? I'm removing myself as silent backup, I said. No more automatic safety net. No more invisible labor. What does that mean? He asked. It means you refinance, I said, on your own, with terms that don't depend on me quietly fixing things behind the scenes. He hesitated. That could take time. I know, I said, and during that time, we do things differently. How? He asked. You don't make decisions about my life without me, I said. You don't monitor. You don't step in unless I ask. And if you need help? He asked. Then I'll ask, I said, and you'll help, as my son, not my supervisor. He sat back, processing. And if I mess up? He asked quietly. Then we talk, I said, like adults. We sat there for a long moment, the hum of the refrigerator filling the space. I was scared, he admitted, of losing you, of being responsible. I was scared too, I said, of disappearing. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something shift. Not guilt, respect. I'll refinance, he said, and I'll earn back your trust. I nodded. Good. When I stood to leave, he surprised me by hugging me tightly. Not rushed, not performative. I'm glad you didn't let me take your life from you, he said into my shoulder. So am I replied. 6 months later, the refinance was complete. My name came off the mortgage. Clean, final. The power shifted, not dramatically, but permanently. Daniel still calls. He asks instead of tells. He listens. Melissa and I are civil, sometimes even warm. And my keys? They stay on the hook by my door. Here's what I know now at 72 years old. People will take pieces of your independence and call it care if you let them. They will shrink your world and tell themselves they're keeping you safe. But safety without dignity is just another kind of cage. My son took my keys for safety. I took back my authority. And in doing so, I gave us both a chance to grow up.